Good evening, Danvers. Welcome to the Topics of the Town News, June 3rd, 2021. We are here together. My name is Mark Zubarek, and I have an invited guest of Jim Morose. And returning for the first time since 18 months ago, we finally have John Toomey back with us today as co-host. I appreciate you coming, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We are all in the studio today for a maiden voyage of the reunion of the troops. Today we will focus on the status of the town and state government. We will also focus on DCAT productions and programming, and continued COVID restrictions and proposed state restrictions and revenue sources, because here we come with tax to the max. And I, for once this year, or recently, I've heard on national TV that the phrase tax to the max is being used. The agenda and opinions are solely by the Topics of the Town News host and commentators. So I want to present my old favorite, and I was corrected today, the Tasmanian Devil quote. I miss the good old days. Remember when you could actually have an opinion without offending somebody. So that quote has stuck with me for a long time, and I continue to use it. The truth is that while mask mandates and lockdowns have eventually come to an end, Americans' perspectives on government seem to have changed forever. For decades, millions of parents correctly observed the public school and had become leftist indoctrination centers where our children are programmed to hate America. Now, these same parents are the ones clamoring the loudest for schools to be reopened. Our message going forward should be simple. We will never send our children back to the schools that teach students to hate the culture. We will never again allow governments to shut down our places of worship, close our businesses, and or scrap our election laws. Danvers may have introduced a bold vision recently, one which ensures that the government stays out of our pocketbooks, schools, businesses, and places of worship. We must declare our independence and assume our freedoms. I prepared that and gathered that information to basically reflect on what has been going on in the last few months, the last 18 months basically. And this dissertation basically covers all the bases because we have been harmed by our leaders. And this is why our government is lacking the leadership that we deserve. So, as we go forward, I'd like to introduce this other slide, and the slide really is about a quote by Mark Twain. It is easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Now that is a very appropriate quote because we all have been fooled. And if you're looking and addressing the issues that have happened, we have been fooled and we continue to be fooled, and we'll get into a segment that will cover that. So therefore, today I have asked Jim Morose to discuss the first segment, and Jim, take it away.
Alrighty, well, howdy, Danvers. Okay, so yeah, today I'm going to talk about DCAT and the purposes and the programming of, and why do we have local cable access? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. So basically, I've been doing this myself since 1992 or 93. Started out with a couple of friends, and we learned how to use all the equipment, and it was a big thing back then, last century. But today, things are different. Things are really different. With the cell phone, you got a whole computer. I mean, this is a whole studio in itself right here. You can video and send it across the world in seconds. Okay, so the technology is slipping away, and so I just wanted to point that out. But while we're doing that, I just wanted to highlight what we were supposed to be doing, or what DCAT and the local access is about. So basically, I just want to, it's all about local programming, and I'm just going to kind of read the DCAT's mission statement and some of the definitions and things, just so you can get a handle of what I'm talking about. The statement and mission purpose of DCAT. Danvers Community Access Television is a nonprofit, membership-based organization governed by the DCAT Board of Directors, which is dedicated to providing video and media production tools to encourage the free exchange of information and ideals of Danvers, while bringing the community together through media production, instruction, and community collaboration. In-house producers. Definition. An in-house producer is defined as a member in good standing that utilizes the DCAT equipment and creates programming with the intent to air the DCAT on the DCAT channels. In-house producers receive preferential time slots in regards to playing their programming. The DCAT staff will do its best to accommodate requests. In-house producers have their productions aired on the DCAT studio video on demand option on the website. And so then we have outhouse producers, we have staff producers, and we have a lot of programming that falls under a bunch of guidelines that the DCAT uses. And producers are fully responsible for the content of their program material and must adhere to the terms in the access usage agreement. So, I mean, that's just the blah, 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 okay? And so back in the heyday, could you put up the first slide there, Greg, please? And so this slide just kind of shows, this was Monday's schedule on DCAT. So as you can see, I'll just try to tell you, there's 16 shows scheduled for Monday, 3 days ago. And out of those 16 shows, only 3 of them were produced by local Danvers producers, okay? And Mark being one, I being one, and there's 6 more, and we'll just highlight them at the end. But all this other programming that we see here is coming. There are producers that live in Danvers, and they sign out all the forms, and then they say, let's play this show, let's play that show. I don't know who's actually requesting all those shows, but there's 16. Put the next one up, Greg. And so this is Tuesday. So again, we have a very variety. Some of them are local. I mean, like the Derby Street variety that comes from Salem, the New Englanders, National Parks, I don't know where that's from, and this Sidewalks Entertainment. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like, institutionalized. I don't even know what word, I forgot the word there, but, they're syndicated and incorporated, and they're created someplace, I'm sure at a DCAT or a similar DCAT, and then they kind of push them out. And so a lot of this stuff, it has all the global narrative that we hear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, that's one of the things I just wanted to point out. Danvers is Danvers, and we live in Danvers. We live in Essex County, part of Massachusetts, which is part of the United States, which is part of the North American continent, and we're all part of the global scene, But
well, Jim, if I may, this has been a constant issue since we have become the establishment in this organization, because our shows are produced, they're well supported and everything else. But the mission statement of the DCAT organization is to produce Danvers for Danvers residents, because Danvers residents and the participants in Verizon and Comcast that they purchase their programming are the ones that are paying for the establishment of this organization and this facility, and we are always welcome to come here, but there's not enough local productions. And all we're talking about on this particular screenshot that we've shown is the public access channel. There are educational channels, there are government channel, and both for Verizon and Comcast. The problem is that not enough Danvers produced for Danvers residents programs are being presented on
Can I
the
throw
screen.
this in?
Go for it.
You talking about the government facilities and
Right.
problems. You talking about DCAT, but one of the major problems is the average resident, the average voter in Danvers doesn't get involved. The elections, the last few elections, were strictly on what, 10%, 9%, 14%
Right.
of the voters turned out. I mean, that's ridiculous. But that is one of the reasons why, A, you have a small group of individuals who are running the town. You have a small group of people who are
Right.
more or less producing here. And one of the major reasons is because not many people are going out and saying, I want to do a program. So how do you get the public in general to participate?
Yeah.
That's the major problem.
Well, again, to your point, John, you're right. I mean, and that's what I was trying to say. The technology has changed so much that, you know, I mean, this is going to be, this is an albatross now. People don't really watch TV. Everything is right here. They're live streaming, they're streaming everything. So instead of buying, you know, cable, they're buying streaming services.
But they'd buy more if there were more Danvers programs on.
Well, even if you didn't, you can go on the web, on demand. You can actually go on the web, because one of the things I read that, you know, all the programming, local access is loaded up into YouTube, and there's a website
Right.
that you can watch
Yes.
all this stuff. If anybody out there is watching, you can go to the DCAT website and look at all the stuff. Like Mark said, there's all the government channel has all the meetings from the Board of Selectmen to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, and all the government, all the town meetings that we have, all the boards, the Conservation Committee, and you name it, it's there. You can go to the website and check it out with the government channel. And then the educational channel has like the school committee meeting and all a lot of sports. People videotape for the sports and some of the events that happen in the school, from concerts to, you know, big, you know, school events from, you know, the grammar schools, the middle school or high school. It's all on the channel. And if you miss it while it's scheduled, you can go on the web and you can find and you can watch it on demand. So you can go to the DCAT website and just go right in there. The videos on demand, and you can see that.
All right, but what's the solution?
The solution to this is that we as DCAT, because we're all members of DCAT, and the general public should insist that there be more programs that are related to Danvers.
But they aren't. What
Well,
what can you do
that's-
that makes them?
That's my point. My point is that we have decided to make this show Danvers for Danvers residents, because we don't want to go into the state issues or the federal issues, because they relate to us, but they relate to us in a smaller function. But we cannot ignore that the rest of the country is going to hell, like has been said many times. However, the solution is that we as a staff organization, we have people working for DCAT. They're spending their time on the government, recordings, the sports, and those people are definitely assigned to those particular functions. But should they be doing that function, or should it be done by volunteers like we have? We have had volunteers here in the past, kids from the high school, adults that want to participate. But that is not happening anymore because we have allowed the staff to do the function that the volunteers should be doing.
Well, again, I would contend that it's a combination of both. But again, it's all about the technology. The kids can create their own TV show right here in seconds. And maybe what we need to do is have DCAT have some kind of program where people can upload pictures and videos that they have on their phone and just create a show from that and just play it, you know?
Well,
And because without using the DCAT studios, they can be an outhouse producer.
well, the outhouse producer.
Well,
a
that's the term. But but before we get too far, I want to. Greg, can we go to the? I just want to show the list of in-house producers. There's only 8, producers, and there's the Feast of Healthy Thoughts, the Marquee Health, the Natural Health, and Pharmacy Talks, Stonehearth Capital, and Timing is Everything. And then you got the Topics of the Town, which is this show, and Jim's Table Topics, which is my show. I mean, granted, some of them are a little bit kind of corporate, but they're local people, and they're local businesses, and they have their shows, and it's it's good information for the town. But again, I mean, if anybody ever wanted to, Mark would have you on the show. If you want to come on, he can tape you on your street near an issue. You got an issue in town. He'll bring the cameras and they'll come and they'll take a video. You can talk about the issue and then we can play it on the show. But that's how we get people involved.
That's the interview process.
Is that going to be one of the things they should be doing? Is the staff here should be going out to the schools, to the government, to the organizations and so forth, and encouraging them, actually informing them of the capabilities that they have, and getting them to do their own shows, to get on to cable.
Well, that has in the past has been presented to the volunteers that used to come in, or the trainees or whatever. But the thing now is that we have succumbed to this notion that everything in town, the government meetings, the planning board meetings, every meeting is being televised, but it's not being televised by volunteers. Is being televised by staff, which is expensive in a way, and DCAT does not have the funding for this. In our case, we produce our own show, but what we do is we volunteer our time with the support of the staff, and this is appropriate, and because technically we are not as adept as the staff is. So, but I think the point of this whole thing is that we need to get more involved, and the townspeople need to get more involved in producing shows or commentaries.
How do you do that?
Reach out. Reach out. Look at what's happening with,
So they should have some organization that goes out and gives them information and encourages them.
Maybe we, as 3 of us, should go out and ask people to come in and participate. And we have done that. You and I have done that.
Well, now that they're going to turn Danvers Square into a little park out there in front of CVS and the bank there, it's going to be a congregation place for people to sit, eat, talk, and meet. So maybe we could.
I haven't seen anybody sit at those tables yet.
Well, it's still, don't worry. The weather's coming. The food's coming. It's going to be great.
All right, let's move on. What I want to continue is this discussion is going to continue, and what we're going to do is present a piece every show, and the next show is on June 17th. The next segment I have planned for is the school education has deteriorated to the mediocre level. And during the elections, the school committee was doing a lot of talking, and I have myself. But teachers have finally returned to all grades to in-class students. How well did the remote teaching work even during the pandemic? No measures have been taken to determine how well did our students do under the teacher union mandates. I'm very concerned about that because even the MCAS tests have been canceled because the teachers did not want to realize what the students have learned or not learned. Parents are frustrated and schools continue their imposed restrictions. Why do we have kids in class wearing masks? It's over. School issues surface, but no information is available to the taxpayers.
Yeah, but Mark, the kids didn't go to school.
But
How can they get taught anything if they're not being taught?
well, they were on television. That's what they used, the
But-
remote learning.
The obvious information coming out is that didn't amount to beans.
That's my whole point here.
Well, go ahead.
And the point is that the students, we don't even know what they have learned because the teachers union and the school committee has decided not to measure that. So basically, they've lost a whole year and a half. School issues surfaced, but no information is available to the taxpayers. These are the contentious issues: race relations, bullying, teacher infractions. I have asked for a FOIA request for information regarding that outcome. All I get is that it's all privileged information by the attorney. So the parents need to demand that this information be released, because how are we going to be able to fix any of these issues if we don't know what the issues are?
But people have to get involved.
Well, absolutely. School committee elections include two educators that have been elected who are members of the teachers union at their other than Danvers school system. How will that work? That's a question that I think every student and parent should be asking. Cost of education has skyrocketed without controls. Selectmen, through a manager, has authority to participate in the salary negotiations. How has that worked? All of the meetings, the contract negotiation meetings, are in a private session that the public doesn't get involved.
I just want to say, in preparation for this segment, I just kind of scanned some of the, some school rankings in Massachusetts. So I came across several, and this one put Danvers in one of the better lights. Okay, so I mean, actually, I think there's like 367 districts, but there's 350 towns in Massachusetts, cities and towns. And Danvers on the list was number 202, okay? Number 202. So that means there's 201 towns that have a better educational system ranking than what we got, and there's only 148 that aren't as good as ours. So we're not even in the middle of the pack. We're kind of a little lower than the middle of the pack, to Mark's point. We're, mediocre. We're below the median, below the 50% mark as far as ranking goes. Now, I'm sure that there are other rankings, and I've heard, rankings don't mean anything, but you know what? Yeah, it's a metric, and so we need to look at the metrics and find out what's going to change. And when we have elections should, what were the issues? What were people running on? What's the big change that's going to happen? I mean, again, to John's point, do people know what they're voting for? They're just voting because, oh, I like that person. Yeah, they got good ideas. They got this and that. But where are the results? What's
the
happening?
outcome?
What's
Right.
the outcome? And again, when the teachers unions have been driving the bus here, and especially during this whole COVID thing, we won't even get into that. But I'm just saying that elections have consequences, and if we don't get enough people out to vote, then there will be no change, because there's only the same people that go out and vote, and they vote for status quo, status quo, status
All
quo.
right. Status
We status
quo.
quo. Okay, quo.
John, anything you want to add to that?
I'll let you pass.
All right. So, what we'll do is we'll continue the monitoring of what's going on with the schools. Right now, it's been sort of stagnant. Nobody's doing anything. I haven't seen the school committee meeting. Have you?
Not recently.
No.
Not recently either. So I'm waiting to see if there's going to be any activity in regard to explaining this to the general public. Segment 3, I have open meetings with COVID restrictions. The country, our state, and Danvers has been driven by the national Dr. Fauci directives. The pandemic is over, but there are pockets of resistance to return to normal. The following petition was brought to the attention of the topics of the town. So as Paul Harvey would say, here's the rest of the story obfuscated by mainstream media, state and federal narratives. After blasting the media with news of lifting restrictions, Charlie Baker has quietly proposed legislation to extend parts of the state of emergency. In particular, this would continue to keep you out of public meetings as was done for the last 18 months, basically. This was related to the Department of Education meeting that was held in Malden, and people were basically banned from attending the meeting because it was a public meeting, but nobody was allowed to go in. Under the Emergency Use Authorization Law, which is fake in itself, in order to declare a state of emergency, widespread disruption of public services such as water, power, transportation must exist. Whereas none of these requirements were satisfied, the state of emergency has yet to be substantiated. That which is not valid cannot be extended. The proposed law this is a bill that was filed by the governor, and the proposed law directly violates the constitutional protection of the Massachusetts Declaration and Rights, including Article 4 and Article 7. I won't go into all the articles. We are a nation of laws and not men. Legislators swear an oath to uphold the Constitution and our rights which are protected under it. They pass laws with the expectation that they will be obeyed. We, the people, demand that the government obey our Constitution, the supreme law of the land, and respect our rights. Do not pass S-2452 or S-27. So this was a notification that was sent out to all news media, and but this law basically expects us to continue remote meetings because nobody wants to be exposed. This whole thing is over, guys. The thing is that we need to move on, and filming of government officials engaged in their duties in a public place fits comfortably within these principles. Gathering information about government officials in a form that can readily be disseminated to others serves as a cordial First Amendment interest in protecting the promoting the free discussion of government affairs. What they don't want to hear is the complaints from the general
Well,
public.
it's as I've been saying, the major problem is people don't get involved. And unless they do, they don't have any control. And this is what's been happening for years, unfortunately. But get out and vote. Get out and go to meetings.
Well,
Okay, well,
when
wait a
they're
minute.
permitted.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. To John's point, and Mark, you just read it about what happened in Malden. That was a huge rally. Parents are up in arms. They want their kids back to school. They want to go back to normal. They want to follow the science. The science says the kids are okay.
Yeah, but that's once.
No,
The
but see,
trouble is you gotta get out all the time.
well, that's the problem, is that the mainstream media doesn't report anything where the people are rallying together to exercise their rights to get grievances against the government. But they will certainly only promote and advertise and put in the paper all the things that support their narratives of what their narratives are, and you can't beat it because they own everything. In fact, that's why I brought up the scheduling at the DCAT show. That's all globalist stuff. It's the narrative right down the line. The narrative is now the propaganda.
If a majority of the people get out to participate, then the media will pick it up. But they've got to get out and participate.
Even then, they squash the stories to the level where it's a non-event. And the problem
No.
is that
The reason
who
we're-
is running this country? The
The
media or our government?
The reason the media has taken over is because the average person is sitting home doing nothing.
Well,
Well,
they're training us for the future. They're training us to be lap dogs.
Well, actually, wait a minute, because there was a big, two bull goats. The old commercial, the two bull goats. Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci at the Senate hearings, and Dr. Fauci got caught in numerous lies. They've lied about this whole thing, and it's all going to come out. Even the fake mainstream media is now, even the Washington Post, they're walking it back. Well, yeah, maybe we should have looked a little deeper into, where this virus started from. It was a conspiracy theory if you said it came from the Wuhan lab, but everybody and their brother knew it came from the Wuhan lab. But that was your conspiracy theory. That's what when the truth comes out, they just slap that Band-Aid on it. It's a conspiracy theory. Don't listen to those people. Well, now it's true. It wasn't true back then when Trump was telling you, but it's true now.
Well, let's move on for an additional comment that I received. Additional action items and resources. Children are our future, and it is up to us to protect them and our future generations with good health and freedom. Capitals on freedom. If after people file grievance petitions, superintendents, commissioners, and all administrators, educators, and medical personnel of the state schools restore our children's freedom, we will have accomplished our goal. If they do not restore our children's freedom, then you and every caring and devoted citizen who filed a grievance petition will file a claim against the bond carried by every named party by contacting the risk management company that is provided to you by your state public servants. The issue is that these public servants have a bond for miscalculating the results. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that by introducing this law, they are liable for for a risk. The proposed law, no person shall be compelled by law to acquiesce to medical treatment or procedures, collection of specimens, or sharing of personal data or medical information. This goes back to the passport that they're trying to implement for vaccinated people. And what is so tragic if somebody has an objection to the vaccine? vaccines have been used on children. 8, 10-year-old children.
That doesn't follow the science.
Well, that's absolutely right, but that's what's being forced down our throat. So what I'm trying to get through this is that there's a bill in State House that is basically trying to legitimize the actions that the governor took under this civil defense law that he's used to restrict us. And now, because he made this pronouncement that everything is open, or will be open on June 15th, now he's going to the legislature to get action on legalizing his actions that he wants to pursue further. Now, where was the legislature and where were our selectmen in concert with the State House and the governor? They succumbed to all of these restrictions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We talked about Governor Baker. I do just want to make this point that I've heard, so call me a conspiracy theory, but we all know what Governor Cuomo did in New York, okay? Trump sent him ships, medical ships, to put all the sick and infirm,
Right.
the COVID people on those ships. But did Governor Cuomo do that? No. He sent them back to the old age homes or the senior nursing homes or whatever, and thousands died, thousands. And now we had the same situation here in Massachusetts in Holyoke at the VA, and a lot of VA folks died because the people went to the hospital, they were diagnosed with COVID-19, and they sent them back to the VA places and not to they didn't quarantine them. They just sent them right back, general population, to the veterans. And there's it'll take about a month or 2 or 3 for it to come out, but eventually, yeah, Governor Baker was all over that, and he said, yeah, send them back. We'll see what happens, but it's not a pretty picture. But then again, the press won't report it, so what's the point? Okay, Mark, go ahead before I get in more trouble.
Well, no, you're not getting in trouble. You're just saying plainly what has been done, with our population. What we witnessed during the 2020, and I'll call it the election debacle, while not yet fully exposed, was an abuse of power so blatant, that's so extensive, that it has taken the combined efforts of big tech, big media, big pharma, and the entire phalanx of the Democrat and Rhino operations at every level of government to suppress the truth to that sizable portion of the American people still subject to their persuasion. Abuse of power is the one phrase that describes the actions of the co-conspirators in a total subversion of the U.S. Constitution in the 18 months since the declaration of COVID-19 pandemic, granted them the opportunity under the rubric of the public health emergency to affect our First Amendment rights and nullified them. Basically, we were prisoners in our own homes because that's what the government wanted us to do. Free exercise of religion has been ruthlessly suspended, and I even did a show at one of the churches on 114 where they had outside service in vehicles, and it was a refreshing thought, but they should not have had to do any of that. Freedom of speech has been aggressively surpassed in the de facto public square of the individual world controlled by the big tech. And one of the things that we talked about with DCAT, at the subject of the segment 1, the only reason that people were even involved in any of the government actions was through the meetings that were being televised, and they were locked up in their homes and they were not able to express their views or their concerns. Isn't that right, John?
Yes, but at the same time, the opposite view is very simple. We had a pandemic. We had a disease. We had people dying. Decisions had to be made, and the decisions were made to restrict the people from going to public meetings or going anywhere to gather, because they would transfer that disease. And that's basically why those decisions were made. Now, whether they were good decisions or not, that depends upon how that disease circulated. And to me, anyway, they made the decisions that they felt were the best decisions for the particular situation at that particular time. And it's going on now where we can see it. Massachusetts is having one of the lowest rates, but we had one of the highest rates of isolation. And that, to me anyway, created the good situation where we have the low disease rates.
That's because they pumped so much vaccine into our bodies that now I think it's 67% of Massachusetts
Yes.
residents are vaccinated. But they do not tell you the whole story behind the vaccines.
Well, they don't know the whole story.
Well, the people have experienced vaccine reactions, whether they had strokes or blood
But
clots.
very small numbers.
That's fine, but the thing is that this whole thing, and I'll just speak for myself, this whole thing has negated any flu reactions. Flu is non-existent anymore, but now everything is called COVID, and the number of people that have been affected are restricted to their homes because they cannot transmit that. You're right. But there's herd immunity that has to be developed, and that's what has been developed in the past. But this was an overreaction, totally overreaction.
Well, I look at it from the point of view of you make a decision and you have to accept what results from that decision.
That
okay,
decision was a personal decision by the governor. The governor has no right to impose restrictions on me.
The governor has every right to do what he considers best for the citizens of
Well,
Massachusetts.
then,
Okay, I want to.
We'll agree to disagree.
Let's not argue about that. Let's just clearly, we need to follow the facts and the science of this. This is what they keep telling us, but like you said, John, you have to make decisions based on the information you got. And I'm telling you right now, a lot of the information, a lot of the decisions were made based on false and erroneous data and information. Because if you looked at the whole picture, the red states and the blue states, well, different states. Some states locked down, mandated mask, quarantine, don't get out of the house and wear the mask. Some states weren't as strict. And you know what? The numbers were pretty much the same. There was no like, oh, these people aren't staying home, and no, it wasn't. They lied about it because they lied about everything. They literally lied. If someone got hit by a car or they had a heart attack and they had COVID, they said it was a COVID death. They inflated the deaths of COVID, and they're not even telling you what's happening with the vaccines and how many people are getting sick and dying on that. But again, so you can't make a good decision if you don't have the information. That's all I'm saying.
You gotta make the decision regardless of whether you have good or bad information.
So what you're saying is that you rely on the governor to make the responsible decision for you. Where's personal responsibility? Where is personal freedom?
when the election only attracts 9 or 10 or 13%
know.
of the average person, you can't expect to get good results.
All right.
Okay, all right,
Let me
I'm going to
continue.
close this with one thing. The Constitution says something to the effect of that the government is here to provide, promote the general welfare of the country, not provide it. It's to promote it. So they're supposed to be there. The government's supposed to be cheerleaders. Yes, citizens, you can do it. You can do it. Go, go, go. And what they're telling us is, no, 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 don't do. Okay.
Right. Well, let me continue on this state government thing. Freedom of the press has been largely nullified by a united front of monopolistic big media ideologues who, in cooperation with big tech, openly and dishonestly attack the alternative media as to poison the public against them. Freedom of assembly has been perhaps the most universally suppressed right by every government zealot capable of enforcing the lockdown mandate, forcing people to stay at their homes, let alone try to gather in groups at state capitals. I attended gatherings at the foot of the State House where people were demonstrating against these lockdowns and these religious restrictions. And the thing is, people were fine. There was nobody affected. The rights of petition for redress or grievance has been suppressed by all of our above conspirators through the false characterization of our protests as selfish, dangerous, white supremacist, and insurrectionist. So by demonstrating at the foot of the State House, the general public, there were probably 4,000 or 5,000 people there at the time when I went with my camera. And what I would like to do is petition the rights that we have. We need to keep them. Behind all of this has been Big Pharma and its government enforcement, the CDC, which now seeks to destroy our Fourth Amendment right of bodily sovereignty by forcing the entire nation to submit to vaccines to generate vast Big Pharma profits paid from our public treasury. So this is just a conclusion of a statement that was provided to me. And this was a petition that was against the CDC vaccine bullying. And I'll end it at that because there's a continuation of this after John gets through his subject. What do you want to talk about?
You went to the airport meeting. I'd just
Yes.
like to hear that one.
Well, let me just wrap up this section. The story that we presented last show was that the selectmen of Hadley took action and finally declared that the pandemic is over. And they have attached other comments that have been presented. I hope more towns, remember, it's your body, your choice, or so the saying goes. Hadley is the first town in Massachusetts to take this common sense approach to liberate their people from these restrictions. So we presented that last time, and what we're going to do is we're going to continue to the next segment, which is the resident concerns regarding the Beverly Airport expansion and outpouring of noise complaints. So I will report this time that I have put together a letter, and John, do you want to address that at all? Right
No,
now?
I'm waiting for you.
Well, we're running out of time again. Attached are the comments, and this is a letter that I wrote on behalf of some of the residents that are abutting the airport, and I've spoken to many of them. Attached are the comments, concerns, and impacts on our community. The only reply from the commission is that all these changes to the master plan are dictated by the consultant and the FAA regulations. Well, we need your help, and this is asking help from Seth Moulton, our federal representative. We need your help to address this issue and stop the planned expansion. Your intervention with the FAA may produce a response that we need. We have brought these issues to the state representation without success. We already have constant traffic by commercial air traffic from Beverly and from Logan Airport. Our homes and education facilities are in danger. Expansion of the airport is only good for the expansion of the Beverly Airport business and does not consider the effects of the quality of life in the surrounding communities. Danvers residents need your help. So this was a plea after 4 months of discussing and addressing the master plan for the Beverly Airport. The Beverly Airport master plan basically increases the length of the runway 300 feet on the Danvers side and 300 feet on the Beverly side. And they cannot go any further into Beverly because they're over wetlands. So what we have been discussing and debating is what effect will this expansion of the runway to 5,601 feet do to the number of flights, the size of the airplanes, the jet traffic that is being planned. And the response is, hey, this is the plan. Take it or leave it.
Well, as I understand it, this is strictly a situation where the airport, to exist, has to increase their capacity. And I've been in their flight path since, 40, 50 years now in my house and so forth. But it's rather obvious that what they're considering is the situation of business flights that will be using jet aircraft for short 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day flights, and which will increase substantially the number of takeoffs and landing from Beverly, and obviously increase the noise level substantially. Now, to me, the main question is for the airport, the situation where if they're going to continue to exist, they have to expand. From what I've read, that seems to be the situation.
No, John, the issue here is not that they cease to exist. They limit the quantity and quality of planes that will be landing and taking off from the airport.
The number of planes taking off and landing at the airport will not increase at all unless they go into the situation I just talked about, the multiple jet engines and the business orientation of the flights.
That's absolutely correct.
The situation that really hasn't been explained is what is the financial situation at the airport. The insinuation that they have been making is that to exist, they have to increase the number of flights.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. That doesn't mean no.
It's
that
no.
Means,
the answer is no.
Well,
the issue is that they want to increase the size, the quantity of planes, and how often they can take off and land.
There isn't any other alternative if they're going to do anything to increase.
Well, then what we need to consider is, the consideration is that Salem right now is building an Amazon facility. Amazon facility depends on short flights, jet quick flights in and out, and deliver the products that they ship. This is one of the situations where Danvers residents have identified as an option that they will be using jets. And that's why they need the extension of the runway. The recent...
You're saying Amazon will use Beverly Airport.
Absolutely. They have Lawrence right there, they have Logan right there, but they're not going to pay the price for Logan landings and takeoffs because the cost is higher. Then what they need to do is increase the cost of the existing planes that are going up and down right now. The diversion that has been created, and this is where I had a meeting this morning with the airport commissioner, is that the diversion that they have created as a result of the opposition to their plan is that there's noise. This noise has been there forever. This has been an issue in Danvers for 25, 30 years.
But nothing like jet noise.
Right. So let me just conclude because we have 3 minutes left. The recent opportunity to attend a virtual community meeting on April 26th has proven that the Airport Commission has disregarded our concerns raised to the January 26th meeting, or on what effect this expansion will have on our community. The only objective of the airport management is to expand the airport capacity and improve the facilities for the pilots and operators. There has been no consideration for the abutting properties, resident comfort, and unsafe overflights over our schools and public facilities. We have already suffered irreparable damage to our neighborhoods over the last 20 years and are not being considered in the development of this apparent expansion of the Beverly Airport Airport. This has been going on for many years. I remember when I was on the Board of Selectmen, we had the tree cutting that Beverly conducted. And they were claiming that that was for safety purposes. Well, 2011, 9/11 happened, and they were supposed to stop the takeoffs and landings over the high school and the grammar schools. That has continued now. One of these days, one of those planes, God forbid, ever lands or crashes into the high school, we're going to have a catastrophe. And people don't consider that. Beverly doesn't care. So the commissioners need to address this issue. That's why I put together this letter. And the letter has 9 different attachments. Noise abatement study, focus groups. Focus groups were only conducted with the business community on the airport. And they have not done the right by the Danvers residents or the Beverly residents. They're complaining too. So now that we're down to the last minute, I'd like to close this up as saying we have another segment that we're not going to use this time. We'll use it next time. But closing comments, I don't think we'll get to them, but I'd just like to announce that the news broadcast will reconvene on June 17th, 2021. This will be the last show for before the summer recess. We will resume broadcasting in September. So next show is on June 17th, Thursday, same time, same place, and we'll try to use the studio as well. So Good night, Danvers. Thank you very much for listening. And I didn't introduce the turkeys, but I think you know who the turkeys are in this town. So next time we'll put a name tag on each one.
Thank you, Mark.
That's your turkey. Good night, Danvers. Thank you very much for listening.